Hey everybody, it's Alysha Wood Survivor here, and this is going to be some red signs and red flags from my personal experience with sexual assault, from being brainwashed, groomed, and being sexually assaulted from ages 3 to 10. Let's get into it. One of the red signs and red flags is the way my family exploited me. I'll put it in the description. I'm saying it wrong, I know. It's pretty much the definition for it is taking advantage of somebody vulnerable. But anyways, that is one of the ways, one of the red signs and red flags I would have to say from my personal experience. Because they did take advantage of me. There was points where I tried leaving, and since I didn't know I was disabled, it was hard for me to find jobs. When I was a teenager, because I got kicked out at 16 and then fully at 17. Because of Joe Jose Galves and Mary Ann Morley and my ex pedoprotector family members. Because I stopped believing in their beliefs and I wanted to expose Mary Ann Marie Morley and Joe Jose Galves for who they truly are: filthy, disgusting pedophiles, child predators, and they didn't like it. They didn't want me to share my story online and were scared. And I received a lot of backlash in my family to the point where I was getting harassed and bullied in my own family. They would talk about Joe Jose Galves, Trevor Morley Wood in a highlight, telling stories about them, pretending like what they did to me didn't happen. Also just talking shit literally in front of me in the next room, talking about my court cases, talking about how good of a person and how they miss and wish they could be around them, and how such a good person they were, even though they weren't, because they are child predators, pedophiles. And they would do this in family events when I was hanging out with my cousins, family members. I got kicked out when I was 16 to a point where I was sleeping in stairways. I was dating my ex. I slept in his stairway. Also, I slept outside. Also, because I was kicked out, to a point where I had to call 911 because I was scared and lost, and I was only 16 at the time. And it was either the police showed up and they told me you can either go to the women's shelter, which I was scared of because I was told of like very horrible things that can happen to women in those kind of shelters. And plus I'm very younger than I actually am. So being like, having that thought that I would have to sleep in an unknown area where I felt unprotected, even if I felt unprotected in my own family, at least I wouldn't be around a bunch of strangers. which led me back to my aunt's house. I rang on her door. She let me stay, but that was only to her own benefit. She charged me an arm and a leg for a tiny room, no bigger than a closet. $500 for staying in a tiny room. I wasn't allowed to have friends, anybody over. I constantly just stayed in my room because I felt isolated from them. Because it was really the only place I had, and I was trying to get jobs, but I wasn't able to, and I finally had a breakdown after, like, I want to say a couple months of living there. And my biological aunt walks in, Sue, and she was like, Mary Ann Marie Morley needs help at the house, and she still has her cats. And so I ended up going back over there because it was just too hard, at least over here. I had my friends and connections with people from my past. Over there, I had really nobody. They really did isolate me to the point where I was just in my room getting high constantly. To the point where I broke down. Especially because I wasn't able to get jobs or anything like that, and I was turning 17. So I decided to go back and live with Mary Ann Marie Morley. Around 18, after I moved back, I didn't know I was still on, I was on disability or anything like that. I was really struggling with food, even rent, because I was paying rent when I moved back here. And Mary Ann was using all that money for her own personal benefit, buying drugs, alcohol with that money. I did not receive any of that money. And she finally told me when I was 18 that I was disabled, and that my doctor retired, and that I was receiving all these funds, but I was not aware of. She tried to downplay it, made it feel like that she was in the right for doing that. But it was very hard for me to get jobs, and that's why it was very hard for me to leave my ex-family members and Mary